It's time! All right, ladies and gentlemen, woo! We are back with a new episode of INCS on MMA.
Indeed
Today, we are going to be breaking down UFC 289, Amanda Nunes versus Irene Aldana.
It's going to be a very interesting fight, man.
It's going to be a very spicy one and a very, very spicy card where people are going to really discover a lot of new fighters on this card.
Definitely. That's a perfect way to put it. But let's start off with the big one. Amanda Nunes defending her belt against Irene Aldana. So, bit of backstory with this fight. Amanda Nunes was supposed to be fighting Juliana Pena, the trilogy, but Juliana is scared because we all know she's scared. So she faked an injury, and then now Irene Aldana Irene Aldana was like the next opponent. Even Amanda Nunes was saying, like, I thought Irene was going to be next. Instead, Irene was fighting Raquel Pennington for the second time after she lost the first one, and instead they scrapped that fight, and now Irene's fighting Amanda Nunes for the belt. And honestly, this is a great fight, man. Irene Aldana, her last, I think she's 4-1 in her last 5, I believe. She's just been doing really well. She got a lot of good knockouts. So it's finally like she deserves a chance against the belt. But you're going up against the Lioness, which, as we all know, is a scary, scary woman.
Exactly. And with Irene Aldana, she's ranked number 5 right now, which is really a testament to the dominance that Amanda Nunes has had on the division. Irene Aldana, so she's got some really great hands and she's got some really vicious power. Most recently, she got that great KO by Macy Chiasson, which was she was on her back and she pushed her leg up and got an up kick body shot.
It's
KO,
crazy, yeah.
Which was wild. Prior to that, she had knocked out Keetlin Vieira. But one thing that we have to point out is that she has lost to high-level competition.
Yeah. She
has lost to Raquel Pennington, who Amanda Nunes beat. She has lost to Holly Holm, who Amanda Nunes beat. She has lost to Caitlin Chukagian, who Valentina Shevchenko beat.
Yeah, okay.
She has lost to Leslie Smith, who Cyborg and Amanda Nunes beat. It's very, very tricky when it comes to this kind of fight. I wonder about her chances, but at the same time, I wondered about Alexa Grasso's chances. And look at how she proved me wrong.
Fair enough, but, you know, it is Amanda Nunes. It's not Shevchenko. So I feel like Irene might just not be prepared for the hands. I mean, we'll see. This is one of those fights that I'm happy because it's fresh, it's new. Amanda's fighting someone that could take the belt from her.
Exactly.
You know? And that's what just... Because a Juliana trilogy just bored me, man. After Amanda deliberately went 5 rounds to just wipe the floor with this woman, just to show how much better she was, to me, it was like, we don't need a trilogy.
Also, there was something going on in that Amanda Nunes camp in that first Juliana Vega fight. She refuses to tell us what it is. But she says between her and her coaches, she knows what was going on. And she eventually actually fired those coaches. So it was quite wild. There was definitely something going on that made her suboptimal. And then in the second fight, in the most vicious way possible, she proved that she could beat her everywhere. In the stand-up, on the ground.
There were multiple moments where she could have just submitted her. But she was just like, no, I don't want to.
I'm going to beat you up.
Oh, it was terrible.
For everyone to see.
But yeah, it's a great fight. It's a fresh fight, and I'm always happy to see Amanda Nunes fight. To my opinion, the greatest woman to ever fight, dude.
Exactly. Now, before we get too caught up in that fight, let's go into our co-main event.
Sorry, I'm just so excited for this. I can't contain it. I love the lightweight division, and I love this fight. Charlie Olive versus Beneil Dariush.
Dariush.
Can you do the fandango?
Oh my gosh. So this fight right here is going to be really, really, really interesting.
Oh yeah.
Especially when it comes to what it means for the division. Now, Beneil Dariush, largely, he has already been owed a championship fight.
Definitely.
But I think because of the fact that he's not as much of a fan favorite, because a lot of people, it's not that he isn't an exciting fighter, but I think because he isn't a personality and an exciting individual, he struggles to get the kind of heat that he should get,
especially
in the UFC.
Especially in the division that he's in. Yeah.
Because there's guys like Justin Gaethje who have gotten 2 title shots in the time that Beneil has just been beating everybody up. And Justin's lost both of those, but Justin's the human highlight reel.
Exactly.
And then you've got Dustin in that same division. And quite frankly, if Conor McGregor wanted to come back
and
just ask to fight Islam would say yes. So it's a very tricky division to garner like heat.
Yeah.
But he has done some really, really, really crazy things in the division in the current times.
Oh,
Destruction of Tony Ferguson, that was terrible.
Oh.
We all know him for that amazing comeback fight against Dracaclos.
Dude, I love that fight. Oh.
Exactly. And his most recent performances have really showed us that he's incredibly balanced, he's incredibly well-rounded, and he's just good everywhere.
Yeah.
But now he's going up against Charlie Olives.
Yeah, and that's a different story. So, like, just to touch on what you're saying, I mean, Dariush recently, wasn't his recent fight, was it Gamrot? There was an hype train coming through the lightweight division that Dariush just dismantled. He took 3 rounds and just picked them apart and just showed that, like, he's a top contender. And look, Dariush is someone that everyone's saying, does he have the grappling skills to fight people like Islam and Charlie Olive? And it's funny because when Charlie Olive was champ, Dariush was supposed to fight Islam for title contention, and it was like the can he fight Charlie Olive fight. And now it's the other way around. Islam's champ, and Dariush is going up against Charlie Olive to be like, can you handle Islam? But look, Charlie Olive, there's not much to say. He was the former lightweight champion. He's coming off that loss. He's proven time and time again, he's got the skills. You know, he can handle the hands of Gagey. He can handle the hands of Dustin. And he can still just choke you out. The moment you hit the ground, he will pounce on your back and it's like over. You know? And obviously, that Islam fight, I don't think he looked the greatest. But Islam's still a dangerous foe. And yeah, I think he's just fighting to stay in contention. He is the number 1 ranked lightweight. And I'm so excited for this fight, man, because if it goes to the ground, it's like Dariush is not an easy opponent for Charles. You know, this could be a really technical fight. This could be one of those ones like the Islam versus Volk, where it's like it goes to ground and now it gets interesting.
Exactly.
But I cannot wait, dude. Essentially, if Dariush wins this, you can't deny him the title fight anymore. And yeah, dude, I'm just super excited.
Exactly. And like Charles Oliveira, as you were saying, he's good everywhere. Prior to the Islam loss, he was on an 8-fight win streak where he beat like your Dustin
shut down everybody.
Your Justin Gaethje,
Tony's in that.
Tony Ferguson. And like it was really, really, really insane.
So what was it? Was Tony? He beat Chandler. He beat Poirier. He beat Gaethje.
He cleared out the division, all except for Islam. And then Islam as well, when he went for that arm triangle, I really think it was because he knew that was the side that had the broken collarbone.
Yeah.
So it was just a really, really, really smart move by Islam to go for that choke. But yeah, very excited to see how this fight goes on.
Yeah, a lot of implications. But moving on, we got quite an interesting fight here. We got Marc Proper Malott versus Adam Fugitt. I hope I'm saying that right.
Adam Fugitt.
But yeah, so it's quite an interesting fight because both of these guys are relatively new to the UFC. Marc Malott, he came in off the Dana White Contender Series. He got like a 40-second guillotine that it just came out of nowhere. And then most recently, he folded Mickey Gall. Like, it was terrible. Like, it was scary.
He did that one for the WWE.
Yeah.
That was for CM Punk.
So he's on like a 5-fight win streak. And then Adam Fugitt, he's also very new. I think he's had about 2 fights in the UFC. His debut, he lost, unfortunately. And then he won a second fight, and this is his third. Both of these guys, they're very well-rounded. They got a handful of submission wins. They got some KO punches. Marc Malott proved that he can guillotine you whenever he wants, and he can still knock you out with the power in his hands. Adam Fugitt, I don't know too much about. But from what I've seen, he's a bit of the same. You know, he can, whenever he can choke you out, but he relatively just goes in for the TKO and the punches. And I think they both got good records, and it should just be a really interesting fight.
Yeah, I think these guys, there must be something about them for the UFC to put them on the main card.
I mean, Marc Mallott's Team Alpha Male, so maybe you know that, what's his name?
Uriah Faber.
Yeah, he's got that Faber in the background, you know, making some deals. Doing some deals.
But I don't know, like, I think the UFC definitely must see something in them. Of course, them being Dana White Contender Series boys, Dana's always going to try to pump them up there. But I think that this is going to be a very interesting fight. It's definitely that whole new breed of MMA fighter where they're good everywhere because they started off training in MMA.
Yeah.
It's not like karate. It's not like this. It's that. We did MMA.
True. And like Marc-André has actually shown that he hasn't taken a lot of damage in his fights so far. So he's on the come up, which should be a good fight. Definitely.
Now, before we hop onto that one, a little bit too much, we're going to chat about a featherweight bout. Dan 50K Ige versus Nate the Train Landwehr.
Baby!
Woo! Now, this one is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Sparks are gonna fly. I want to talk about Nate the Train first.
Yeah.
Nate the Train is a wild man from Tennessee. Oh my gosh. If you've watched the comebacks that this guy's had in his most recent fight and the fight before that against David Onama, he cannot be put down unless you put him out. Like, Nate the Train is insane. His fights are so entertaining to watch. And sometimes in his fights, he'll just stop even though he's in a dominant position just to pump up the crowd.
Yeah.
Just to be like, wow, wow.
I love this guy. He's so entertaining to watch. And like you said, he always just puts on a show. Most recently, he's had this huge, I think it's 3-4 fight win streak at the moment with those comebacks. He's definitely like proving himself at the moment. But his opponent is Dan 50K Ige. Now Dan, at the moment, he's coming off that knockout. What was it? Damon Jackson.
Yeah, Damon Jackson.
And before that, he was on a 3-fight losing streak, so he desperately needed the win, and he got it. And he's looking good. And like we've seen, look, Dan's an interesting case because prior to those 3 losses, a lot of his losses were big names.
That's true.
You got the Kelvin Katers, you got all these Korean Zombie. He lost to big names. So now, Nate's not a name like that, but Nate, like you said, is someone who's actually the perfect opponent for Dan, because Dan likes to go for the 50K. He likes to knock you out. He likes to throw hands, and he likes to put on a show. But as you
just wild sub.
Yeah, or like you said, Nate's the type of guy was that you have to choke him out or knock him out to put him down. Otherwise, it just fuels the fire and he comes back. So I think this is just going to be a banger, man.
This one is going to be an amazing fight.
If Dan starts trying to throw hands, I think Nate's just going to feed into it, and it's just going to be one of those ones where they're both just swinging at each other. It's going to be beautiful. I honestly cannot tell who's going to win. I kind of just want Nate to win just so I can hear his post-fight speech that he says like the same thing every single time, and it never gets old, bro. But yeah, it's just a good fight.
And moving on to our middleweight bout, we have Marc-André Barriault versus Eryk. It's your boy, Anders. This middleweight bout, it's a very interesting one because both of these fighters have had win-loss situations for quite a while in the UFC.
Yeah.
Marc-André Barriault has been in the UFC since 2019. Eryk Anders has been in the UFC since about 2017.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, he had that headlining main card with Lyoto Machida, where he lost. But since then, it's been a lot of win-loss for Eryk Anders.
Yeah.
He's a guy who was known for having heavy hands, but it was very specifically a heavy left hand. And I feel like as the sport has progressed, people have noticed that, like, that's the trick that you have.
Yeah.
And, like, he hasn't had a lot of consistent success in the UFC recently.
No, okay, I get you. And then, look, his opponent, Marc-André, is very similar, in a very similar boat. He's coming off a lot of win-losses. Not any, most of his recent fights have not been big names.
Yeah.
And essentially, this is just like 2 guys who are veterans of the UFC just having a good old fight. That's what it is. They're here, they get paid to fight, they show up and they fight. But either way, it's still going to be a good fight because both of them, they're veterans in the UFC. They've done this a while. Like you said, Eryk Anders, even though people have figured out his trick, he's still a deadly opponent, and it still just could be a good one. Either way,
that is true.
But yeah, no, it's a good main card. A lot of people think it's a crap main card, but if you do the research and you know the fighters, it's like, hey, this is actually a really interesting card.
And all of the fighters, I mean, I'm looking specifically at that middleweight bout and that featherweight bout. All of the fighters have something to prove.
Yeah,
they really want a win.
Especially that welterweight one as well with the Mark Propermatic. Like, that's a fight with 2 up-and-comers. If one of them gets a highlight reel knockout, it's like, oh, wait, now you can fight the big dogs. It's guys on the come-up. It's their moment to shine.
I think this is going to be one of those cards where people are going to be like, oh, no, I'm just waiting for the main event.
Yeah.
But then
You're missing out.
The actual card goes crazy.
You're missing out, man.
Like, I think it's going to be amazing. Now, we're just going to touch on the prelims. We're not going to go too in-depth on the fighters.
Some interesting names.
But you've got Matt Schnell versus David Dvorak. Matt Schnell, of course, is known for that crazy comeback triangle. And also from being in the UFC from a reality TV show that isn't tough. That's also a very interesting thing about like Matt Schnell.
It's actually quite an interesting fight as well because he's ranked 8 and his opponent's ranked 10. So actually there's a bit of implications here. They're both just trying to fight to stay in the top 10. Very cool.
And in the light heavyweight division, we have Khalil Roundtree Jr. versus Chris the Cop the Cows.
Why is that not his nickname? Why is that not his nickname? Dude, just to make Chris the Cop the Cows. Like, come on, bro.
Khalil Roundtree is a guy who, I mean, he's like our era's Uriah Faber.
Yeah, wow.
He came out of The Ultimate Fighter, super deadly, KOing guys, insane. And now in his actual career, it's been a lot of win-loss, win-loss. He has moments where he's shown massive potential, like when he knocked out Gokhan Saki.
Yeah.
And then like he loses to guys like Johnny Walker with like elbows.
Yeah, it's just every now and then he's one of those guys where he has a lot of bad performances, and every now and then he just has a really good performance that comes out of nowhere. You know, he's got a few wins that I think are just cheap and dirty, but that's a whole nother story. But his opponent, so Chris Daukaus, this is his light heavyweight debut. He was a Contender Series winner. He's been in the heavyweight division this whole time. He had quite an interesting come up. He was on like a 4-5 fight win streak. And then it was disappointing because every time they gave him the big names, he'd lose. They gave him Derek Lewis, he lost. They gave him Rosenstruck, he lost. They gave him Curtis Blades. So the moment he started getting up against top contenders, top 10 guys, he just couldn't handle. So now he was also quite a small heavyweight. Like even against Derek Lewis, who's also one of the shorter, more stubbier heavyweights, he was kind of small. So it's a good move for him, to go down to light heavyweight. And yeah, let's see if he has what it takes to stay there. Because he definitely has some skills. He showed a lot of promise in the heavyweight division. But we'll see how it goes.
And moving on to our middleweight bout, we've got Nassourdine Imavov versus Chris Action Man Curtis.
And Chris likes to live up to his name. Lately, he's been putting on a lot of action fights. Exactly. Yeah, the Hermanson one was extremely boring. But that
was because of Jack.
Yeah, that was Jack's fault. Let's be real. Exactly. Jack didn't want to engage. But every time someone's willing to engage, Chris is there to throw it down. But it's because he hangs out with Sean Strickland.
Proof Sean Strickland isn't racist.
Yeah, he's got black friends. I mean, come on. Yeah, it's just going to be... Nassourdine Imavov as well. He's a good veteran fighter. Always willing to put on a show. And yeah, it's just going to be a fun one.
Yeah, and Chris Curtis, as you say, coming off of that really great Kelvin Gastelum fight.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to him being in the UFC, he was like a serious knockout artist. And he's gotten some KOs in the UFC. He knocked out guys like Joaquin Buckley.
That was beautiful.
That was beautiful. The final fight of our prelims is Hakeem Dawodu versus Lucas Almeida.
That's great. I actually don't know too much about these guys, to be honest.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really interesting featherweight bout with two guys who want to see themselves noticed a little bit more in the UFC.
Definitely, yeah. It's actually just a really good card all around. It's just a lot of people. It's not a lot of like top 5 names, so a lot of casuals are gonna think this is a shit card, but it's really not. It's actually going to be a lot of fun. I see a lot of knockouts happening, to be honest.
Yeah, I see a lot of KOs. A lot of crazy wars. And who knows what's going to happen in that main event? Whether it's going to be a wash or an upset.
Is Amanda going to lose her bout again and then prove that like she's not actually like, she is unbreakable, you know? Or is she just going to show that the lioness is back and you can't steal her bouts?
Exactly.
I'm so excited to find out though, man. Woo!
But anyway, that's INCS on MMA.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe and check us out for the next UFC breakdown.
Woo!